Well, aloha from Hawaii. This is meteorologist Amy Metz. Right now, you're looking at the watches and warnings. Most important here, as far as severe weather is concerned, is over Texas. There is a red box just north of Waco indicating that there's another, this is now I think the third that came up today, radar indicated tornado warning. So that means that there has been rotation seen through other radar products, the base velocity, that could indicate a tornado, and that there's possibly a tornado now, but I have not heard any of these being confirmed on the ground yet. So I will back up out of this and also let you see the green where there's already some river flooding, downstream of rivers. There's been the green areas are what is already dealing with some flooded waters, and now there's more storms to come. So also I'll be talking about aurora and some space weather. I just got out of class with Tamitha Scovis, my professor, in space weather. So we look at a lot, and my main goal for going to space weather classes was to see how it affected Earth weather. There are some very new studies linking space weather, a solar phenomena that I'll get into at the end of this video more in depth, that increase cloud coverage, produce lightning. So all the green here, what you're looking at, is likely clouds already. It is most definitely upper level moisture. And the white is also a little bit less moisture. But blue is fairly dry air at the upper level. The yellow is even drier. So what I do here for the forecasting parameter, I really want to drive home that there is a green plume. It is growing in size and in moisture content from Texas, like where we just saw those storms popping up into Arkansas, that we do have Mississippi and Alabama already getting some of this, but even more importantly for the longer term forecast, we have a long stream coming out near the equator where this would be what's called tropical moisture. And when it does funnel up into higher latitudes, it ends up producing even more rainfall than what we would normally see from moisture that's driven just, from the north. And it's usually a little bit drier coming from the north. So we could see intense torrential downpours with this storm coming ahead. So on the wind side of things is what we're looking at now. From this point on, we will be having a low pressure that is now here near the border. This is at the surface. This will extend through the sky in different places. But as this plays out into Thursday, you'll notice the low pressure, this center of rotation kind of changing and switching around a little bit. But the major contributor to the severe weather that will be coming ahead, especially on Thursday, even more chances for tornadoes and hail than what we saw today in the region here by Texas. That will then become centered more over the southeast. So right here we're seeing some strong winds, the brighter colors, even stronger is what that indicates, coming up from the Gulf of Mexico where all that moisture was training in at a higher level. Now this is the surface, but up above there was even more moisture coming in here. So as this air moves north, it will go from warmer air to cooler air, which is one more reason why we'll have some very fast rising air, which is one production for thunderstorms. And then in addition to that, that upper level moisture will be one more reason why these can be stronger. So on this graph, actually I want to go to the weather radar. And by the way, I'm in my chat for the first time here, so if you have questions, go ahead and let me know in the live stream chat box here, and I can answer them this time around. But what we're seeing now is where that green plume was on the water vapor imagery upper level. Does indeed have more activity there. And then also in the south already by New Orleans, all the way into Mobile, and quite a bit north. So this is going to continue carrying on eastward, and then as that happens, as more severe weather will shift a little bit to the north, because the center of rotation will then be coming and moving into the northeast. And so as far as the forecast goes, I'll kind of break this down a little bit more, and this is a little more technical than what you would normally see on TV. So you can get an idea of how these things are being forecast. That same upper air that we looked at on the water vapor is this same stuff here. So the same level anyway. But what we're looking at here in the red is going to be divergence, where these isobars move apart, the air can rise up more quickly and become more filled with thunderstorms. So right now, those areas are a little bit north of where we were actually seeing the thunderstorms. And as we go into the days ahead and this low pressure tracks toward the east and then a little bit toward the northeast, it will most likely be following these open lines where they're a little bit further apart. So as this drifts, some of these divergence in the upper level will shift a bit, and a lot of this red will then move toward the north and give a lot of thunderstorms tomorrow, especially during the daytime hours, to central and northern Mississippi, Alabama, a little bit of Georgia, but because of the Appalachian Mountains, they will kind of be out of the scope on this, especially like right where the mountains are. But even more in the picture there too, besides those 3 states, is Tennessee. So we do have a few major cities in there that will be needing to be on guard tomorrow. And then at the jet level, this is a lot like we saw last week with that big outbreak of tornadoes and hail. And like I'm saying again, it's just a little bit more to the north this time. So right around here is where we typically see a lot of severe weather, which was happening right now on the radar imagery, where these mouths, I call them, or they're really jets, the exit region of a jet, stronger here, a little bit less strong. Where they exit, we typically see severe weather, especially on the bottom region, which is called the right exit region of a jet. So we're going to be seeing this again, shifting up toward the northeast, and as that happens, a lot of this will drift along with it toward the northeast, meaning that that right exit region tomorrow will likely be right in this region here that we just talked about on the last map, where we'll also have upper level divergence, plenty of moisture training in like we saw in the water vapor. Same story, a little bit down further, but not as not the same place with that jet streak. The center, where the strongest winds are a little bit behind. And I have friends all the way in Pasadena, California, saying, "What is going on with these winds?" And I had to tell them that no, nothing's coming in. It's actually pretty dry over there right now, but pretty soon that will change too. But it was the low pressure developing over Arizona at that time, about, let's say, 12, 16 hours ago. This jet streak was right over here. And so then you can imagine tomorrow, in about another 16 hours or so, we'll be opening up for severe weather, daytime heating, all of that going on here, with the jet streak then shifting another bit, probably ending around here, giving us the right exit region right about here where I'm circling with the mouse. So one more indicator for severe weather. And the more reasons and factors and parameters we have for severe weather, the more likely it is that it will be extreme, that we'll have an outbreak. So vorticity advection goes very back and forth, but when we see the red here, it's a little bit more leaning toward the side of severe weather again. So there is more red than green here, and you can imagine again tomorrow with the shifting, all the reds here will be a little bit further up where we're seeing everything else lining up. So this is the lineup for severe weather. And right now, not as much humidity or moisture, let's say, in the 700 millibar level, which is kind of, let's say, a little bit midway through the atmosphere, a little lower than mid-level, but it is in the same region where we're seeing the severe weather right now with the thunderstorms. And it will continue to shift and continue to feed in more moisture from what I've seen on other data products, but then a little bit down lower to the surface, there is abundant moisture. And we also saw at the beginning the upper level had abundant moisture. So one more indicator that severe weather will be intense tomorrow. And there's more here that I won't get into now, but the big story is that we are going to have to be on guard tomorrow for something that was very similar to what we saw last week, as all the tornadoes were coming together in this region here, through Alabama, through parts of Louisiana, through a little bit of Arkansas. We're going to see that again, but a little bit shifted to the north tomorrow. So be on guard anywhere in the southeast. These storm systems, the little cells like this, what we're seeing here today, will tomorrow be in this area. And the further north they track ahead of this front, this last line, the ones ahead of that will have time to grow in intensity, and the warmer and sunnier it is in your area ahead of these storms passing, the more likely they could be to be extra convective and have some of that severe weather with them, like hail and damaging winds and tornadoes. So we did see some of those come out of here today in Texas. And tomorrow we'll see more tracking north, and then eventually some with a northeastern component as this line of storms shifts into the Mississippi region and then tracks to Georgia through Thursday. So Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, we're going to be high alert here into Thursday evening, I believe, and by Friday things should be letting up, but there'll still be a little bit of lingering storms here. Once this last line of storms passes your region, you'll most likely be in the clear. A lot of the severe weather will be ahead of the final line that we're seeing in Texas today, but it can last for quite a while ahead of time depending on your location. So now on to the space weather. I did start a group on Facebook called Space and Earth Weather, where I'm sharing some of the information about how we forecast space weather and how it can affect us here on Earth. And one of these things is how we have aurora right now, and one of the tricks and tips to learn, I posted in a link there. Oh, well, now it's not working. I'm silly. It is called AE index. And so because that is above 500 again, I'll just tell you, since it's not there, that means we do have aurora on Earth right now. That's happening in the UK, it's happening in Scotland, and it'll continue shifting around the globe as it becomes nightfall. And as a little indicator that I'm not the only one saying this, here is from NASA saying that all weather on Earth from the surface of the planet out into space begins with the sun. So I am now a student of space weather, adding that to my, let's say, my repertoire for forecasting Earth weather a little better. And these are some of the tools I use. This is a satellite looking at the sun in different wavelengths. And I'll just go ahead and play out one of these. Right here I'll choose a specific wavelength that shows the filament eruptions quite well. Now we did have a CME, meaning that as these interact with Earth, they can cause us some aurora. They can cause us radio communication disruptions, bring us more lightning, and intensify our storm systems on Earth. So we saw that one sort of moving around here a little bit, and there was a recent CME eruption from here. And they're not very easy to see because this time in our solar minimum, the 11-year solar cycle, we're closer to a minimum right now where there's less activity on the sun, but these are eruptive arcades and filaments that are sort of spewing off a little bit. And we had another one too in the northern portion of this that just went off. So this is more active region, and we had 3 CMEs blow off. And because if you imagine yourself being the Earth where you are looking at your screen, because this here is then rotating this direction, we will have more reason to believe that there could be enhanced geomagnetic storming causing all of what I had just said happens with the lightning and Earth weather changes. So Space Weather Prediction Center, wspc.noaa.gov, keeps track of a lot of this information, and I think it's a pretty nice overview right on their homepage as to what's going on there. So on this coronagraph, I'll end here showing you how this looks in a different format. Now this won't tell you exactly where on the sun something is coming from, but you will notice that there's an eruption on this screen, and it's quite small. Now, what would be considered large is if this circle actually became large enough to encompass the whole sun. Then we know without a shadow of a doubt there are, let's say this properly, that there would be energized particles coming toward Earth, no matter what part of the sun that blasted off of. And now because of other wavelengths that I just showed you, and a few more on top of that, I do know that it came from this region of the sun. The little white part is the sun, and then this gets blacked out and covered so that we can see things a little more clearly without the brightness of the sun getting in the way. But this is not something that's going to affect us very much here on Earth, but just a little bit. So in the coming hours, because we have aurora now already, we can see that this 3-hour index, this 3-hour average of K index, it will begin to rise up to what we have the red levels for, perhaps at least the yellow into a moderate storm level, and maybe even the red again like we saw last week. So at the top of the page here, we can see that in the coming days, the Space Weather Prediction Center already has some alerts here saying that, yeah, there's more of a chance for some of these substorms and geomagnetic storms on Earth, that there's a small chance some of this plasma ejection or coronal mass ejection could be affecting us here on Earth. So again, that will increase lightning, which there is plenty of. The studies I've read so far indicate that this kind of stuff, when it interacts with Earth's magnetosphere, will affect us for about 40 days with increased lightning. So it has been very, very bright out there around these storms with tons of lightning bolts. So be careful with all of that passing. I hope we can see the same outcome as we did with last week's outbreak, that despite homes being destroyed and so many tornadoes touching down, that there were 0 fatalities. So that was the best news I got to report last week for that, because this is always the biggest concern. And again, watch out, especially in this region here tomorrow, from about Atlanta to Nashville, northern Mississippi, Grenada, all the way through to Birmingham is going to be probably the worst of it, in my opinion, as far as the activity goes with severe weather, possible tornadoes, hail, and damaging winds. So I hope you can enjoy the weather and find a way to stay safe and prepared ahead of all of these dangerous storms. And then before I leave, yes, we can check out and see now what's active. So there still is a thunderstorm with, says, half dollar-sized hail, 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. This is 19 miles west of Hillsborough and moving at 40 miles per hour. So I keep seeing the tornado possible warning coming up in this, meaning that there's some rotation in those upper levels going on and off as this storm is moving northeast. So be aware of this if you're in Texas, and that there are a couple storms behind it that could also do this, but I believe the more likely one to have a funnel cloud would be here, and hopefully we don't have any devastations through this. Thank you for watching, and let me know if you have any questions down below in the comments. Well, it looks like the method I used to shut that down won't work, so